This video is sponsored by Squarespace, the all-in-one website platform helping you succeed online. Hey everyone, Grant here, welcome back to the channel, and this is the continuation of the camera comparison between the Vivo X300 Ultra and the Xiaomi 17 Ultra. I've already done a camera comparison in good lighting conditions during the day, so this will be the low light camera comparison so you can see what it looks like in less than ideal lighting conditions. And so this is video footage coming from my actual camera. It's a Lumix G7 from maybe about over 10 years ago. I just want to show you what everything looks like here in this particular setting so you can compare that to what the video looks like coming from the actual phones. And this is now a video from the Vivo X300 Ultra and Xiaomi 17 Ultra. This is log video at 4K 60 frames per second. And this is the main cameras. And if you're wondering about the camera hardware specs, you can go ahead and watch the last camera comparison for the details. But basically, the main differences are that the Xiaomi has a wider field of view, as you can see, at 23 millimeters on its main lens versus the 35 millimeter focal length on the main lens on the Vivo. They both have the same telephoto periscope zoom cameras, and they're very large sensors, but the Xiaomi has a variable focal length at 75 to 100 millimeters versus the set focal length of 85 millimeters on the Vivo. And the main difference in the ultra wide is that the Vivo has the larger camera sensor there, one of the largest, if not the largest, ultra-wide-angle camera sensor on a smartphone, so it's going to be much better in low light than the Xiaomi's ultra-wide-angle camera, and they both pretty much have similar selfie camera sensors. And this is now a video from the standard video mode on the Vivo X300 Ultra and Xiaomi 17 Ultra. This is still at 4K 60 frames per second, and so obviously this is the low light camera comparison, the continuation to the last camera comparison that I did in daylight conditions. So you're going to see how both these phones perform in less than ideal light conditions at night or in like conditions like this where you have some low light, maybe indoors. And lastly, this is some portrait video from the Vivo X300 Ultra and movie mode from the Xiaomi 17 Ultra. So you should be seeing some artificial background blur here. But like I always do, let me show you a bunch of photos and videos in low light conditions this time. If you want to see good lighting or daylight conditions, go ahead and watch the previous camera comparison between these two phones. So go ahead and take a look at all the photos and videos in low light and let me know what you think. Everyone, just a quick break from the video to mention that if you're a creator or any kind of creative professional looking to publish your content or even trying to monetize it online, then today's sponsor, Squarespace, has a bunch of tools to make that really easy and help you get started. In addition to offering templates for every type of website to help you quickly get started, Squarespace offers various ways to quickly set up various income streams, from selling your photos or artwork on various products your audience would appreciate, to providing a quick way for your supporters to donate and help fund your work, or selecting from pre-built templates to easily create a members-only area on your website to offer your supporters exclusive content and new ways to connect with you. And when you're ready to publish your website, go to squarespace.com/grantlikestech for 10% off your first website or domain. I'd like to thank Squarespace for sponsoring today's video, which helps me bring you more content like this. Now let's get back to the video. Hey, so here's a low light video test of the Vivo X300 Ultra and Xiaomi 17 Ultra. This is the ultra wide cameras to start out on each at 4K 60 frames per second. So I'm just going to pan around here to give you a side-by-side view of how these ultra wide cameras look here in the same scene. And off the bat, you'll notice that the Xiaomi has the wider field of view, it can fit more in the frame, but the Vivo is going to have a brighter picture. The ultra wide camera on the Vivo is a larger sensor, it lets in more light, so it's going to be much brighter than the ultra wide angle sensor on the Xiaomi. But we can go ahead and move into the main cameras now on the Vivo. So 35 millimeters there and 23 millimeters here on the Xiaomi. So you can see the picture brighten up on each, especially on the Xiaomi, more pronounced. So it's got a large 1-inch type sensor, so slightly larger sensor than the Vivos. Also a 23 millimeter sensor. So it's going to fit more in the frame than the 35 millimeter main sensor on the Vivo. So again, I'm just panning around so you get a side-by-side view of how the main cameras look here in this same scene. And we can go ahead and pan over here and test the telephoto. So we can go ahead and get to that sign. So 85 millimeters here, telephoto lens on the Vivo, and same here on the Xiaomi. And of course it has that variable focal length. So we can get all the way up to a 4.3x there, 100 millimeters on the Xiaomi telephoto. And we can go all the way in to a max 30x there on the Vivo. And we'll go all the way to a max 30x there on the Xiaomi. So you can see the clarity here and what that looks like here on the signs at max zoom on each. And we'll pull back out on the Vivo and on the Xiaomi, or on the Xiaomi and then the Vivo. And we'll pan around this way and we'll just start walking to test the stabilization, as well as to show you what this looks like with some movement and how it looks in a little bit darker lighting. So obviously really bright back there, a little bit darker as you walk this way, and it looks like a really bright light is on around the corner, so it'll get bright again. You can see right there as we round the corner, and we'll pull up here. So obviously a really bright light again, but as we pan over this way, it gets a little bit darker. You're gonna have the light cast off on the right from that bright light, but still it's meant to be darker down this corridor here, especially panning over here to the trees. The Vivo is looking a little bit more realistic. The Xiaomi looks like, at least in the viewfinder, is brightening everything up a lot more. And so we'll pan up this way. You can see the building lights and into the night sky. So it is a bit overcast. You can see the clouds, and there's gonna be some light pollution, so it might be a little bit of noise, a little bit more pronounced from what I can see on the Xiaomi, because it's brightening everything up with the larger sensor and everything else. But do let me know what you think about this 4K 60 frames per second footage here on each of the phones. So here's a low light video test of the front facing cameras of the Vivo X300 Ultra and Xiaomi 17 Ultra. This is being shot at 4K 60 frames per second, the max resolution and frame rate of these front facing cameras. And because of that, at 60 frames, things get a bit darker and more pronounced, at least on the Vivo. The Xiaomi is still looking fairly bright for 60 frames per second. And I'll shoot this one time through and I'll come back again and shoot it in 30 frames so you can kind of see the difference. On the rear cameras, between 30 and 60 don't really seem to make much of a difference, just because the rear sensors are so large on both. That's why I didn't do that on the rear cameras. But anyway, I'm here in my usual testing spot. You can see how everything looks with some good lighting conditions, a lot of light around me, and how it handles with that really bright street light again behind me. And I'll just walk to show you what the stabilization looks like side by side, as well as move over from that really bright lights to a little bit darker area as I move through this area. over here, a little bit less light as I go through this area here, as you can see. And then I'll pull up here and pan all the way around so you can see how these front-facing cameras do with a bunch of really bright street lights there, and actually doing fairly well. I don't see really much flaring out of those lights. And we'll go back over here so you get a side-by-side view of what this looks like without all those really bright lights. And still here again, at least in the viewfinder, the Xiaomi looks brighter than the Vivo does right now, although it is kind of warm and dingy lighting. So if that's the kind of feel that you're getting, that is just because of the low quality lighting out here, and that's kind of the whole point of these low light camera tests. So I'm gonna go ahead and come back and show you what this looks like at 30 frames per second and give you a quick wrap up to the conclusion on what I think. Evan, so we're back with the front-facing cameras, this time at 4K, 30 frames per second. So you can see everything looks a little bit brighter than it did at 60 frames per second, and much more obviously on the Vivo than on the Xiaomi, is at least what I can see in the viewfinders here. And so I'll run through the same test so you can compare what it looked like here at 60 frames per second, and I'll end with my thoughts and conclusions. But here we are with all the lights around me, some ideal lighting conditions for nighttime or low light. You can see how it handles the bright light behind me again, both very well. And I'll go ahead and start walking so you can see the stabilization at 30 frames per second here, as well as what everything's going to look like as I get over to this area that has a little bit less light right about now. And so definitely looking brighter in both the viewfinders, again more pronounced and obvious on the Vivo. And we'll pan all the way around. You can see what it looks like here with all the really bright street lights behind me. And again, doing very well, not flaring them out very much at all, but overall brighter picture quality here at 30 frames on each. And I'll move over to this darker area so you get a side-by-side view here, and definitely brighter on both, and again, much more obviously noticeable on the Vivo. But do let me know what you thought about the camera comparison here between the Vivo X300 Ultra and Xiaomi 17 Ultra, and what your personal opinions are. For me, I think it's going to come down to always personal preference, but first and foremost, the differences. So if you like the 35mm main camera focal length versus the 23mm main camera focal length on the Xiaomi, that's going to be a possible factor for you. I liked the wider look of the Xiaomi personally, but then it's going to also come down to the differences in the telephoto camera, both same size sensors, but of course the Xiaomi has the variable focal length at 75 to 100 millimeters, and that could be a gimmick, but it really depends if you shoot at those focal lengths a lot and if you value that optical quality or not. For me, it didn't make much of a difference. I actually preferred the Vivo's telephoto camera in being able to be closer to subjects, so a little bit better of a telemacro telephoto style lens, or what they've done with it. And so you get a little bit closer to subjects, a little bit easier to get those macro shots with the telephoto lens, which I personally prefer on the Vivo. And then it's going to come down to color science. Obviously, Xiaomi is partnered with Leica, so you're going to get the Leica look, the Leica color profiles. So if you really like that, you're going to go Xiaomi. Otherwise, Vivo has its own really great set of color profiles, and they've even expanded it here on the X300 Ultra from last year's X200 series. And so either way, I think I enjoy them both. And of course, they're going to both support all the pro style tools and formats. So pro modes, log video, all that. And so as far as pro style formats and shooting modes, they both support all that. So you're not going to go wrong with either. So for me personally, I would still pick Vivo for some of the reasons I mentioned and the telephoto shooting experience. But I really enjoyed my time with the Xiaomi. And so for me personally, just because of the things that I personally prefer, the Vivo still might be my favorite camera phone this year. I liked last year's X200 Ultra, and so far I'm liking this year's X300 Ultra just a bit more than the Xiaomi. But we're gonna see if the Vivo can still hold its crown, at least for my taste, because I've got the Oppo Find X9 Ultra, and so we're gonna see how the Vivo holds up against that. A lot of people say they like the Oppo, so I'm gonna put it to the test, and we're gonna see what I like and what my personal thoughts are gonna be. So stay tuned for those videos. But in the meantime, let me know if you have any other questions or comments on this comparison. I'll try to answer whatever I can in the comment section. And as always, thanks for watching.